Colonel Robert Sink, commander of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, along with Major Robert Strayer, who led the 2nd Battalion, played a central role in the creation of what would become one of the most famous companies in the United States Army, Easy Company. The 506th was formed in 1942 as an independent parachute regiment composed largely of civilian volunteers. The idea behind the regiment was simple but ambitious. These men would be trained to parachute behind enemy lines and fight as elite airborne infantry. But the path to becoming a paratrooper was not easy. From the very beginning, the training was designed to push recruits to their absolute limits. The regiment's early training at Camp Toccoa, Georgia, quickly gained a reputation for being some of the most demanding in the Army. Long runs up Currahee Mountain, grueling physical conditioning, and relentless discipline ensured that only the toughest soldiers would make it through. Roughly 2/3 of the original volunteers washed out during this early training period. Those who remained would form the core of the regiment that eventually deployed to Europe. Within the 506th, Easy Company would go on to develop a remarkable reputation. Between August 1942 and the termination of the regiment in November 1945, the company had 6 different commanding officers. Each of them played a role in shaping the unit's history. This is the story of those commanders. The first was Lieutenant Herbert Sobel. Sobel was not only Easy Company's first commanding officer, he was essentially its founding member. From the earliest days of training, he set the tone for the company's discipline and standards. Later promoted to captain, Sobel became known as a strict and relentless taskmaster. Even decades after the war, Sobel remains one of the most controversial figures associated with Easy Company and the 101st Airborne Division. Many of the men who served under him viewed him as a bully who pushed them unnecessarily hard. His leadership style was rigid, demanding, and often unforgiving. Punishments were frequent, and Sobel was notorious for finding reasons to discipline his soldiers. Yet, despite the resentment he generated, there was another side to his legacy. Some members of Easy Company, including Richard Winters, later acknowledged that Sobel's brutal training methods helped prepare the company for the realities of combat. The extreme physical conditioning and discipline imposed produced a unit that was exceptionally fit and tightly organized. Those qualities would prove invaluable once the company entered battle. Ultimately, however, Sobel's career with Easy Company ended in controversy. By early 1944, tensions between Sobel and several of his officers had reached a breaking point. In February of that year, while the regiment was stationed in Aldbourne, England, a confrontation between Sobel and Lieutenant Richard Winters escalated into a situation that threatened the cohesion of the company. Colonel Sink intervened. Rather than allow the conflict to continue, Sink transferred Sobel out of Easy Company. He was reassigned to the service company of the 506th Regiment, where he oversaw the parachute training school at Chilton Foliat. Despite his removal from Easy Company, Sobel did participate in the Normandy invasion. According to Army records, he jumped into France on D-Day, but served primarily in a supply and logistical role before returning to England prior to Operation Market Garden. Later in the war, in March 1945, Sobel was promoted to Regimental S4, a staff position responsible for supply and logistics. He remained in that role until the war ended. After the war, Sobel continued his service in the Army Reserve, eventually retiring with the rank of lieutenant colonel. He passed away on September 30, 1987. Following Sobel's transfer, Easy Company received a new commander, Lieutenant Thomas Meehan III. Meehan assumed command of the company in March 1944. Before that, he had served as a platoon leader in Baker Company of the 1st Battalion, 506th Regiment. Those who knew him described him as well-liked and respected by the men. Unfortunately, Meehan's time as Easy Company's commander would be tragically short. On June 6, 1944, D-Day, Meehan boarded a C-47 transport aircraft as part of Stick 66. On board with him were several key members of Easy Company's headquarters section, including First Sergeant William Evans. As their aircraft approached the drop zone over Normandy, it came under heavy German anti-aircraft fire. The plane was hit and burst into flames while attempting to make a crash landing near the village of Bouzeville-au-Plain. All 22 men on board were killed. Thomas Meehan became the only commanding officer of Easy Company to die during the war. Ironically, He was also the only one who never had the chance to set foot on enemy territory. With Meehan gone, command of Easy Company fell to the next highest-ranking officer present on the ground, Lieutenant Richard Winters. Winters had been with Easy Company from the beginning. Originally assigned as the leader of 2nd Platoon, he had quickly proven himself to be a capable and respected officer. In January 1943, he had been promoted to executive officer under Captain Sobel. By the time of the Normandy invasion, Winters was already a key leader within the company. After assembling his scattered men following the chaotic parachute drop, Winters led one of the most famous actions in Easy Company's history. Near the village of Brecourt Manor, he organized an assault on a German artillery battery that had been firing on Utah Beach. Using a small group of paratroopers, Winters led a carefully coordinated attack that destroyed the guns and neutralized the position. The action later became a textbook example of small unit tactics taught at military academies. When it became clear that Meehan had not survived the drop, Winters officially assumed command of Easy Company. In July 1944, he was promoted to captain. Winters led the company through several of its most significant campaigns, including the fighting in Normandy and Operation Market Garden in Holland. On October 9, 1944, he was promoted again, this time to serve as the executive officer of the 2nd Battalion under Major Robert Strayer. Though he left direct command of Easy Company, his influence on the unit remained strong. Later in the war, in March 1945, Winters was promoted to major and given command of the 2nd Battalion itself. He remained in that role until the battalion was deactivated in November 1945. Richard Winters passed away on January 2, 2011, at the age of 92. The next officer to command Easy Company was Lieutenant Frederick Moose Hayliger. Hayliger had joined the 506th during its early days at Camp Toccoa, and later became the leader of Easy Company's 3rd Platoon at Camp Mackle in 1943. After the regiment arrived in England, Hayliger was transferred to the 2nd Battalion Headquarters Mortar Platoon. He remained in that position until October 1944. During Operation Market Garden in Holland, Hayliger was temporarily placed in command of Easy Company after Winters was promoted to Battalion Executive Officer. His command was originally intended to be temporary until a staff officer from regimental headquarters, Lieutenant Norman Dyke, arrived to take over. Despite the short duration of his command, Hayliger played a role in one of the most daring rescue missions of the campaign. On October 23, 1944, he led a patrol of 24 Easy Company soldiers across the Rhine River as part of a mission known as Operation Pegasus. Their objective was to rescue Allied personnel stranded behind German lines. The patrol successfully escorted 140 British paratroopers, American airmen, and Dutch civilians back across the river to safety. For his leadership during the mission, Hayliger was awarded the British Military Cross. But just days later, on October 31, 1944, his career took an unfortunate turn. While inspecting the company's defensive lines with Richard Winters, Hayliger was accidentally shot by one of his own sentries. He had approached the position without remembering the correct password. The sentry fired, striking Hayliger in the shoulder and leg. Despite losing a large amount of blood, Hayliger survived. However, his injuries required years of recovery. He spent nearly 3 years recuperating before finally being discharged from the Army in February 1947. Frederick Moose Hayliger passed away on November 3, 2001, just 1 day before the final episode of Band of Brothers aired. Following Hayliger's injury, command of Easy Company passed to Lieutenant Norman Dyke. Dyke had begun active duty in January 1942 and initially served with the 101st Cavalry Regiment before volunteering for the Parachute Infantry. As part of the 506th Regimental Headquarters staff, he participated in both the Normandy and Holland campaigns. During the fighting near Uden in Holland, Dyke organized scattered paratroopers to defend a key road junction against repeated German attacks. For these actions, he was awarded the Bronze Star. He assumed command of Easy Company on October 31, 1944. Dyke led the company through the brutal winter fighting at Bastogne, where he earned a second Bronze Star for rescuing wounded soldiers under heavy enemy fire. Despite these acts of bravery, Dyke's reputation among the men of Easy Company was not favorable. Many viewed him as distant and unreliable, and they gave him the nickname Foxhole Norman. The turning point came on January 13, 1945, during the attack on the Belgian village of Foy. As Easy Company advanced toward the town, Dyke lost contact with 1st Platoon Leader Lieutenant Jack Foley. Confusion spread across the battlefield, and the attack began to stall under enemy fire. Dyke himself was wounded in the shoulder during the fighting. Watching the situation unfold from the battalion command post, Richard Winters realized the attack was faltering. He ordered Lieutenant Ronald Spears, then a platoon leader in Dog Company, to move forward and take command of Easy Company. Spears rallied the company and pushed the attack forward, ultimately capturing the village. Dyke was relieved of command and reassigned to regimental headquarters as an assistant operations officer. Later that year, he was promoted to captain and served as an aide to General Maxwell Taylor, commander of the 101st Airborne Division. After the war, Dyke remained in the Army Reserve and reportedly served during the Korean War before retiring as a lieutenant colonel. He passed away in Switzerland in June 1989. The final wartime commander of Easy Company was Ronald Charles Spears. An original member of the 506th, Spears had already developed a formidable reputation before taking command. Known for his fearless and aggressive style of leadership, he had served as a platoon leader in both Fox and Dog companies. During the Normandy campaign, rumors circulated that Spears had executed German prisoners, stories that contributed to his fearsome reputation among both friend and foe. In Holland, he earned the Silver Star for his actions during Operation Market Garden. After taking command during the assault on Foy, Spears remained Easy Company's commander for the rest of the war. He was promoted to captain and led the company through the final months of combat in Germany. After the war, Spears continued his military career. He commanded the 187th Regimental Combat Team during the Korean War and made another combat parachute jump in 1951 at Munsan-ni. During the Cold War, he served as a liaison officer to the Soviet Army in Potsdam and later became the American commandant of Spandau Prison in Berlin. Spears eventually retired from the Army in 1964 with the rank of lieutenant colonel. Although he initially declined to participate in the Band of Brothers book and television series, he attended the premiere of the series at Utah Beach in Normandy in 2001 at the request of Richard Winters. It was the first time he had seen many of his former comrades from Easy Company in nearly 60 years. Ronald Spears passed away on April 11, 2007. Together, these 6 commanders shaped the history of Easy Company, one of the most famous units of the Second World War. Each brought different strengths, challenges, and personalities to the role, but all played a part in the story of a company that became legendary.